All right, y'all. Welcome to my live stream. My name is Keller, and we're doing bugs. As you know, that's my thing. And so I thought we'd get back to this longhorn beetle model that I started working on a while back. I took a break from it to do work on a bee and then also the Japanese hornet, but I feel like this guy needs some love, so I'm going to do work on that tonight. And I hope you guys get a chance to join me. I'm going to keep tonight's live stream a bit short, down to like an hour, just because I got a lot of work going on. Got to keep the clients happy so I can get the lights on. I want to say hi to Valentine. She's my favorite, and hope she's watching tonight. And then I'll talk to her soon. So I'm dedicating my beetle to Valentine tonight. Okay, so let's get a couple things going here. I want to make sure that I can see the comments and stuff. One second here. Let's get the Maxon live stream going. Here we go. So feel free to say hi in the comments. All right, it's Cobra Snake. Hi, Cobra Snake. Nice to see you. So I think what I wanted to start with tonight is just work on the abdomen a bit because it needs a little bit of attention. And I'll show you some of my typical approaches to doing working on the abdomen. This is the underside, obviously. And remember, all my reference images, this guy is dead. He's a dead bug. So this is probably what not the live thing is going to look like. It's a little desiccated. Kind of gross, but such is the life of being a bug modeler. Let me do a quick web search to see if I can find any other reference images. Because I don't I was looking at the antenna in my reference images, and it's really kind of hard to see what's going on. So let's pull this over here real quick. So I'm not exactly sure what species I have here. You can see what we can see with the antenna on these guys. They're kind of long segments. And from my reference, I can't see how many segments I have, but this is pretty close. This one has like especially long antenna. But anyways, we'll get to the antenna in a moment. For now, let's see if we can find any decent pictures of the abdomen, the underside of a live one. Problem with the looking at pictures on the internet is they're often taken from above for the live guys. That one is, no, it's too dark. I think that's kind of close to what we're working on. You can see one with the wings out. That's not too bad. I'm gonna steal that one. Let's see, just take a quick look here. It's not exactly the same, but gives you a good idea of what the top of the abdomen looks like. I think for this one, I'm going to keep it with the, so for those of you who may not know beetle anatomy, beetles, like many flying insects, actually have two pairs of wings, front wings and hind wings. But with beetles, the front wings have hardened into the shell, which we call the elytra, and they don't use this for flight so much. They use it to protect the abdomen, but they fold up the wings, and the wings fit inside here. And so this is a really nice view of the top of the abdomen. Even though it's a different species, we can use this. We'll just borrow some stuff from this one, so we can get a good idea of the segments of the abdomen. And I think this one's probably dead, because otherwise it would be flying away. Well, we can see it's definitely dead because you got a nail right there. So a little desiccated, but whatever. We'll work with what we got. Okay, well, I think that's what we got for now. Okay, so let's move this out of the side, and we'll look at the bottom of the abdomen. So typically what I do when I'm sculpting insects is I will, and this is what I was doing in previous versions of this live stream, I'll do a like a Dynamesh version just to block out everything and get the proportions. If you go back to an earlier live stream, I actually started this one in Z-spheres and then converted it to Dynamesh. So this right here, we take a look at the abdomen, and if I turn on wireframe, you'll see that it is a Dynamesh topology. So before I start sculpting any details on here, what I really want to do is start splitting this into different pieces for these different plates of the abdomen. And it makes it for much more realistic. It's easier to sculpt when I do that, and then you can kind of model the stuff in between the plates, which I think looks pretty cool. And also if you rig it for animation, having those plates as separate objects looks much more interesting when it's like moving. The plates are interacting with each other and stuff. So I'm going to be a little bit lazy. Rather than do like a hand retopology, because I could take the Z modeler and do a hand retopology, I think I'm going to use Z remesher, because Z remesher does a pretty good job. And since this is a plate, it's not going to be necessarily deform a whole lot. So I may not need to worry about getting like the perfect topology. This one will definitely be a case where good enough is what I'm looking for. So I'm going to paint a mask here. So I'm holding the control key and just painting a mask over the basic area. And then I'm going to hit Control W, and that is going to make a polygroup. And then there's a few ways you could do this. I could do this by creating an extraction. Or another way I could do this, yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'm going to go back a few steps. I'm just going to do an extract here, which is a bit old school. So let's do this real quick, just so it's easier to see. Switch to a white material, and I'm going to go to Subtool, down here towards the bottom. Oops, actually it's in the bottom. Subtool, Subpalette, looking for Extract right here. And then if I just hit this extract button, it's going to give me a preview, and you can see it's showing everything. So let me do this real quick. I'm going to turn off everything except for this one so that you don't get that weirdness. So if I hit extract, you can see that's what the extraction looks like. It's just a preview, but you can also see it's way too thick. So I'm going to set the thickness down here to like 0.001, and that's probably a little bit better. Probably as low as it's going to go. It's just because the scale of the model is so small that I'm using small values. Let's see. I'm going to see. It might be right. You might have the species right. Let's see if I can look it up here. Since this is one that I just bought, and I think I got it at a bug fair, and I wasn't paying attention to what the actual species is. So Acrocina longimanus. Let's see. Well, yeah, it looks like it's probably it, or something very close to it. Thank you for the suggestion. This one looks like it might be, this guy might be alive. What do you think? It looks like he's alive. I don't see a needle coming out of him. Somebody's holding him up. Yeah, they're just having a good time together, hanging out. Oops. Yeah, I know, this is a nice hangout for bugs. For bug lovers of all kinds. I lost my website there. Yeah, some nice reference here. I think that is the right species. Thank you very much for the suggestion there. I'm just trying to see. Okay, and then we turn into sharks. Okay, good enough. That's a great image right there. This might be dead given that it's got all this like schmutz on it. It looks like cobwebs. Yeah, I'm guessing this guy's dead because this got like some kind of weird gross mold and stuff. Unless that's the way he rolls, you know. Okay, so again, hit the extract button. That's probably as low as we're going to get. So I'll just choose accept, and that turns it into a subtool. So if we take a look at the subtool, notice it already has polygroups as part of the thickness. And so this could be useful because now what I can do is a Z remesh. So I'll go down here to geometry, Z remesh, turn on keep groups, so that will help guide the topology of the Z remesh. So we're looking at 10,000 points right here. So I'm going to turn on the same button and just hit Z remesher and see now we've got, because of those polygroups, we got some decent edge loops going around the outside, which is cool. Maybe we can, let's make it a little bit smaller, maybe half that, 5,000 points. Yeah, 5,600. Let's do one more. Can it really see how low we can go? It's the old limbo. That's good enough because I could always shape this again. It's not like the geometry I was using was all that great to begin with in terms of the shape. It's just kind of blocked out. So let's go back to this guy, clear the mask, and I'm going to do the same thing right here. I'm just going to paint a mask. And usually what I'll do for these parts that are really similar in terms of the shape, so I'll just make one and then copy and move it down. So I'm not doing the same thing over and over again. So I'm not doing this, you know, 'cause, okay. You get the, yeah, well, anyways. Let's do extract, accept. There we go. And I'll do the same thing with the Z remesh. Let's set this to half. Keep groups. And that's probably too low. Something like that's fine. Turn off the solo button over here. So I might take this one and just duplicate it. And oops, let's turn off symmetry. Put this in the center and just squish. Look at this. And then I'm going to duplicate again. And then go here, clear the mask. Let's turn on solo for a second. That works. And then I'm going to keep this geometry around because I'll put that on the inside so it looks like there's something within the abdomen. I'll also probably use it if I decide to do the top side of the abdomen, I'll use that geometry as a way to generate those parts too. But for now I'm just going to do the bottom and I'll do extract and whoops, extract, accept, and then go here, geometry. Oops, I meant to keep groups. Keep groups. All right. And let's take all those parts and merge them together into one subtool. So I'm gonna go. Let's save this real quick. Okay. Whenever I'm merging subtools, when I do the merge down, I always save first because it's not something you can easily undo. So in case it goes wrong, I can always just reload the project or the tool. So I merge down, merge down, merge down, merge down. Okay, so now I have this as a subtool. It's a little bit uneven in terms of the topology. So what I'm going to do here is, let's just set this to same and keep groups, and I'll do that. Now they're kind of more consistent. The zero mesher is a wonderful thing. Okay, so now I have this, and I'm going to do auto groups, just so I have a different group for each part here, but also get rid of the groups along the edge because I don't need them anymore. I just, used it as a guide for the Z-remesh. But this will make it easier to, if I do auto groups, now I have a different poly group for each part here. That'll just make it easier to shape, because I can go down here. My mask by polygroup slider I put down here. This is normally found under brush, auto masking, mask by polygroups. I just move the slider down here. You could also use, I'm going to start moving things around. You could also use the move topological. But the nice thing about using mask by polygroups is it works on all the brushes, and also doesn't matter how much you subdivide the model. So, okay, let's get the scheme right here, clear the mask, and right here. And now let's turn this on, and let's get our reference back. I gotta remember to put the reference over here because I always forget that my little video, if I put it over here, then my video blocks the reference for you guys, not for me. Okay, so now let's go in here, get our move brush, make sure we got symmetry on, and then just start shaping this. I'm going to hold the shift key and bring down the Z intensity just so the smooth brush isn't so extreme. And I'll just start moving these things around before I subdivide and start detailing them. And these guys have a little space, or at least on this dead version. And the honeypot ants are the ones with the massively expanded abdomens. They're filled up on. I forget what. I don't think they literally eat honey, but it's a sugary substance that I don't know if they get it from aphids. I forget where they get it. Anybody out there expert on honeypot ants? What do they fill their massive abdomens with? But they're really cool because they're translucent. There's like some artists out there. They show you really quick. This is kind of cool. So this is what they look like when they're filled with, well, I guess they call it honey. But it's not bees honey. What is the honey? Is it bees honey, or where are they getting the honey? Or is it just something they're calling honey? I don't know. I mean, they are Hymenoptera, but I don't know if actually there are any ants that actually produce honey. But regardless, they store it in their ridiculously oversized abdomens. It's really wild to see them. Of course, there's always somebody who's going to go out there and eat them. There's a really... look at that. Yeah, I'm going to leave the ants alone. I don't think they're this big, by the way. I think that's That's a joke. But there's an artist that feeds them the, here it is, with sugary substance with food coloring in it so that they get different colors in their abdomens. It's really wild. Very cool. Pretty wild. There's sugar drops. It's just like sugar water. All right. But, one of the things that I wanted to point out is the fact that in this case, the abdomens obviously have an extremely flexible and expandable abdomen, but you can see that the plates of the abdomen are sort of resting on top, and they're somewhat flexible, and then there's a flexible tissue in between. And I believe the same is this. So this is true for this particular beetle as well, although obviously their abdomens don't swell up into that size. Accumulate nectar. Thank you. That's what I thought it was, something like nectar. Honeydew plants for aphids. Yeah, I figured it'd be aphids. I know some of the ants that farm aphids or make herds of aphids. Somehow the ants can know when it's about to rain, and they'll actually put the aphids like under leaves to shelter them from the water. And nobody knows how the ants know it's going to rain. I'm guessing they sense a change in like barometric pressure or something like that. Ants are cool. The ants actually invented agriculture like 50 million years ago. At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if ants actually do have satellites orbiting the Earth. We just haven't found them yet because they're so small. Which makes me wonder, what are the ants watching on TV, satellite TV? I know what honeybees watch on TV. Game of Drones. Get it? Huh. I'm opening the floor to anybody else who has insect puns that they want to lay on us. Okay, let's subdivide this. Control D a few times. And let's turn on everything except for the Z-spheres. Don't need the Z. I'm actually going to delete the Z-spheres. This is the original Z-sphere model, so let's get rid of this. And let's subdivide this, get up to, is 2 million. Okay, 2 million is good. And now, so this point, I'm going to start kind of dialing in, not necessarily the fine detail, but just start to refine the edges. And so some of the brushes that I like to use for this, TWSK cloth or SK cloth. This is one of Sakaki Kuro's brushes, which if you've been watching my live stream, I use these brushes a lot. You can get them online at his Gumroad. He's also a live streamer here on ZBrush live stream channel, so we're checking out. So what I'll do is I'll just refine the edges, and the trick of this is, I'm going to undo that a little bit and bring down the Z intensity. The trick is always to make something that looks organic and natural, but not necessarily sloppy. So, because I don't want things to look too perfect, because then it'll look CG, right? So the whole trick of doing realistic CG is the last thing you want it to look like is CG. So that means that a little bit of like, not super refined like a robot, but also I want to make it look like the lines have intentionality to them so that they're not sloppy. So I'll just go in here, refine these edges a little bit. And I can Control Shift click on this so that hides the other polygroups. And I'm gonna hold Shift and bring up the Z intensity of the smooth brush. And another way I like to do this is to take something like a clay tubes brush, lower the Z intensity, and just start to kind of sculpt right here. So I'm kind of filling in that area, but I want to keep the lines. I like this kind of like sculpted, organic look because it's hard to describe, but what I want to do is I want to add minor imperfections to the shape of the model, and this is a good way to do it because this feels like sculpting it with clay. So I just kind of go over these things with these different brushes and refine them. Now these are thin pieces, so you can see that when I was using the SK cloth brush, since it didn't have backface masking on, I have a little bit of like a pinching right here. So let's see, I might go back and redo this a little bit. It might be a little too thin. Let's go back here to like right here. And I'm going to take that SK cloth brush, this one right here, go into brush settings, and whoops, come on, go into brush settings. Under auto masking, I'm going to turn on backface mask. And let's try that again. I wasn't crazy about how it came out anyways. So I do this. So now I'm not getting that pinching from the other side. I'm just using this to create a bit of a lip on the edges here. And then maybe carve in a little bit. Because I always like how these things look like they're made from layers. I mean, this one's kind of super nasty and there's a lot of goo on here, so it's a little bit hard to see, but you can kind of see what I'm going for up here. And of course I have symmetry on, so everything's going to be very symmetrical, but it's something I can fix later on. I'll do a lot of the detailing with symmetry on, and then later on I'll turn symmetry off and kind of reduce the obvious symmetry in here. The only reason I do that with the symmetry on is just it's a huge time saver. And then I'm going to Shift D to go down a couple subdivision levels and smooth that out a little bit. And the other thing I might do is, since, you know, I'm just working on a part of this, and I'll probably experiment with this part for a while to see how I want to get the detail going. And then once I've kind of got a method going down that I like, I'll apply that same process or same technique to the other parts of the abdomen. You know, they have to look consistent, but they don't have to match perfectly, because again, if it matches perfectly, it's going to look inorganic. So I kind of want to, it's like I'm developing, I'm trying to discover the style of this particular insect and its particular detail. Every different insect has its own kind of inherent shape language that you're trying to discover. You know, that's kind of what I love about sculpting insects, because everyone is a little bit different. And well, I love character modeling. The thing about character modeling is, once you study human anatomy, which can take a long time to really perfect, obviously I'm still working on it, but there are rules to it that all humans, at one point, even they're different age, different proportions, that kind of stuff, they still follow the same basic rules. overall. Watch some of John Brown's sculpting videos on the Gnomon Workshop, and that's the kind of thing that he discusses. Looking at the high points and the low points of the human body, they're going to be consistent for the most part, much more so than insects. Insects, even among beetles, they're going to be massively different. And so that, to me, I think, is the challenge. You get a sense for how to sculpt various different things in insect, like how to make convincing look to chitin, the material that exoskeletons are made out of. Obviously, you develop techniques for dealing with eyes. I'm always perfecting the way that I do eyes. The method I have now is pretty good, but it can always use improvement. So there is that. You sort of learn over time that there's definitely some similar techniques that you can apply to a wide variety of different insects. But the variation is much more extreme among bugs than it is among people. Because there are millions of species of bugs, and for people, we're talking about Homo sapiens, right? Unless you get into other primates, which can be cool. Chimps freak me out, though, so I don't sculpt chimps. I can stare at spiders all day long. It doesn't bother me. I can let a spider crawl on me, but chimps freak me out. Can't trust them. If you're gonna hang out with chimps, just keep a banana, close by. Not in your pocket, obviously. Because then that chimp will just be wondering if you're happy to see them. But I digress. Anybody else have a fear of chimps? Oh yeah, okay, well, I'm so glad that you asked me about Redshift for ZBrush, because you just opened up an opportunity for me to plug my own course. So let me show you real quick. I actually created a course on Udemy, and I'm going to pull it up here real quick so you can see what it's talking about. That discusses ZBrush materials and rendering, and it has a whole series of chapters on Redshift. So it's Red ZBrush Keller. One second. This right here. Demystifying ZBrush Materials. Keller. And look, it's got a 5-star rating because it's awesome. Only $19. Check it out. I basically talk about, I have a section on material basics, a section on working with standard materials, matcat materials, how to layer materials, creating your own custom materials, and then a whole section on Redshift materials. And I'll do another course as soon as I can, more like lighting and that kind of stuff with Redshift. But if you're curious, check that out. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to plug my stuff. I also have a few other courses. I have ZBrush for jewelry designers, 2 courses. This is it's geared towards ZBrush for people who are coming from jewelry and want to learn how to do ZBrush for casting and 3D printing. But this is also just an introduction, and it covers everything in the intro of ZBrush in a lot of detail. So it's like $25, and it's a bunch of chapters. And then I have another course on the different types of ZBrush geometry. So this talks about subdivision surfaces, Z-modeler, extrude, dynamesh, Z-remesher, projection, decimation, sculptress, booleans, just all the different types of geometry in ZBrush and how they work, and then how you can incorporate them into your workflow. So if you're curious, check that out on Udemy. Just look up for my name, Eric Keller, ZBrush, and check it out. But I'll do more on rendering with Redshift in future live streams too, because I think it's a really cool feature. Yeah, I know. The great thing about insects is there's so many bugs to choose from that, let's say we wanted to split up all the bugs in the world between everybody who's watching this live stream. What does that give us? Something like 100,000 bugs each that we have to model, So there's plenty of bugs out there, and it's such a it's an awesome way to explore their anatomy, but it's also really useful to the scientific community because, we got drawings and photographs, which are very useful, but now the 3D scan technology is getting so advanced, we can create scans, but they still need to be edited. They still, at this point in time, need to be refined and studied. And there's just no better way to learn or discover things about anatomy than to actually sculpt them. And I did a workshop with Thomas Vanderkamp, that some of you guys may be aware of, and Emily Hartop a couple months ago. And Thomas has a really cool system for scanning, really sophisticated system for scanning bugs. And he's actually made important discoveries in the process of scanning them. Like some beetles actually have like a weird sort of like gear system within their anatomy that was never seen before until he actually scanned them. Let me see if I can pull up his website because it's worth checking out. Really cool, lots of cool papers and that kind of stuff. I think this is what he's talking about. So this is a discovery he made through scans. It's just a really interesting joint system. It's like a screw. It's not a gear. It's like a screw. So basically, it's a weevil, and when the weevil brings its rear legs into its body, it brings them in really close, so it's super tight. And it does this with an internal screw mechanism that is like reminiscent of like if you ever put together like IKEA furniture. It's kind of like that. It's really wild, but it's something that nobody knew about until they actually did a 3D scan of it and took a look on the inside. So that kind of stuff is like, this is why it's important to continue working on this kind of stuff, doing 3D models of bugs. Okay, just justifying because we all know it's fun. So as you can see, now that I've done this, I've got this kind of organic surface. I'm going to smooth it out here. And just kind of show you kind of a typical way I'll do like a technique like this. I might go in here with a hard surface brush, but just very lightly with a low Z intensity, just a little bit, because I still want some of those marks in there. And then what you can do is I'm gonna bring back the other pieces here to kind of do the same thing to the other pieces, but let me show you kind of where I'm going with this. If I do I'm going to Control Shift click on this and just mask everything else and just do like a clay polish on this. It's going to tighten up that geometry a little bit. You can see in the edges here. But whenever you do a clay polish, it leaves a residual mask, which is really hard to see. It's super faint. Let's make it a bit more obvious. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back a couple of steps. And I'm going to go in here and apply some surface noise. So take a look here and just play with the scale a little bit. And I like to play with the mask. I don't have anything specific that I'm going for, just something that looks kind of nice and organic and interesting. Something like that, and I'll choose OK. And right now the surface noise is kind of like a bump map. It's being projected onto the surface, but it's not actually affecting the geometry. If I do apply to mesh, then that bakes it into that geometry. It looks like it's hidden a little bit. That's just because, it's not quite as strong once I bake it in there. But now what I'm going to do is I'll go back and do that clay polish again. So when we do clay polish, it's going to tighten up the surface. If I switch over to the flat color, you can just see that there's a little bit of a mask here left behind, right? And that mask is, you know, it's as it does the clay polish on the surface, it kind of polishes everything and then leaves behind a mask, and it's just kind of like, it's like a cavity mask, but it has its own kind of quality to it. And so what I'll do now is I'm going to invert the mask, Control I, and I'm going to hide the mask, Control H, and just go over this with like an inflate brush or something like that, right? So inflate brush, and it's just going to inflate the unmasked parts, and you get this, right? Or I could do a negative inflate, right? Control, I'm holding the Alt key, and then I'm going over this, and then I'll hit it with the smooth brush. And you can see that the combination of doing this kind of thing leaves like a really nice kind of organic detail that's hard to get otherwise. It's one of these things that I discovered completely by accident. And another cool brush you can use, if I go in here and I'm going to find the smooth peaks, this one right here, which is a really cool smooth brush. And, you know, so I'll go in here holding the Alt key, hitting it with the inflate brush, and then I'll use the smooth peaks brush on top of this. And it just gets you get some really cool, interesting detail that way. So I use this technique a lot, probably too much, but it just has a really cool effect. Like, this is a great way to kind of splinter up these edges to make it look like these are layers of chitin that have kind of like, you know, if we bring back my my reference here, you know, and you know, this is pretty good. I just kind of wanted to jump ahead. I might do this after I've sculpted the other parts of the abdomen here, but I just kind of wanted to show this here just to give you an idea of where I'm going. But you can see how it's also giving me these random pits right here and there, which that just looks great. You know, it's very organic. And you know, I'm leaving that mask on even when I'm smoothing. So I'm holding the Shift key, smoothing it out, holding the Alt key, hitting it with that inflate brush, and you can get some really cool details that way. And maybe I'm going to clear the mask and then just hit it with the smoothing. This is another way to get this kind of like the smooth peaks brush will leave these little pits behind. That has a very insect-like quality to it. You know. Whenever I use the smooth peaks brush, I get the soundtrack to Twin Peaks stuck in my head. So just some ideas there for getting cool detail. Yeah, I've heard of the leaf hopper that has the gears in its hind legs. It's really cool. Just gotta evolution, man. Gotta love it. Okay, so let's repeat the process on this guy. So again, I'm gonna start over again with my SK cloth brush. Could also use the Damien standard brush for this kind of thing. And I'm just kind of like refining those edges a little bit, but also messing them up a little bit so they look nice and organic. And you know, if you see my other live streams when I do poly painting, all of this detail that I'm putting in here is going to really help out when I do the poly painting. It's going to give me lots of cool surface detail that I can then use as a mask when I'm applying different colors to the surface. and you get some really cool, nice organic stuff going here. And this is like, fine detail. I'll probably come in here and do larger detail. I don't know if I'm not going to do these threads and stuff because this is like junk. I think this leftover from the dead bug, all this schmutz. I mean, it might be fun to do, but I don't know if it's useful. Some of it's just goo that's stuck in the hair. If I was modeling a dead bug, if I was doing a scene for a movie where you had dead bugs in a drawer and Ant-Man was like running around in there or something, that'd be a great idea for another Ant-Man movie. Have him run around in an entomology lab among the dead bugs. Then you'd want to get some of that dust and dirt in there and stuff. I'm kind of alternating, holding the Alt key, going over this, and just going up to that edge, filling in a little bit. I'm going to bring down the Z intensity a little bit here. Because of the square alpha on this brush, it's kind of leaving behind these streaks here, which I think looks really good when you start to incorporate them with the other detail later on. Some of the approach that I use really is just based on feel, for what feels right. I think ZBrush, unlike many CG software, definitely has a feel to it. It's hard to describe unless you've been using it a lot, but traditional artists don't like to hear that CG has a feel to it, but ZBrush definitely does. I haven't used Blender enough to know if that's kind of a different thing. Like I'm my main tools have always been ZBrush and Maya, just because I've been doing this forever. I don't have the same kind of affection for Maya that I do for ZBrush. I might develop an affection for Blender, I don't know. I did some insect animations in Unreal back in the day. I'm getting back into working with Unreal. That's another piece of software that I love. And my lovely wife Irene has become quite the substance expert. She's taken over the substance texturing in the team here at Blue Baton. She's also a very good ZBrush artist in her own right. Go down here and let's do this one. And my little sweet Valentine has started to use ZBrush too. She's working on doing some minions. When you see a 6-year-old starting to remember the hotkeys in ZBrush better than you do, that's a little bit scary. She keeps telling me I need to finish my minion model. I'm like, what are you, an art director? What the heck? What the heck? Little kids are like the most brutal art directors in the world. They'll be like really amazed at what you're doing for exactly 7.5 minutes. And then when they hit that 8-minute mark, all of a sudden they're starting to tell you everything that you're doing wrong with absolutely no filter. It's brutal, I tell you. There's no compliment sandwich coming from an 8-year-old or a 6-year-old. Really with the style, if we didn't have child labor laws, just think of it, all the studios could just hire like 6-year-olds to be art directors. You would be getting it done, man. At least until they got cranky and they had to take a nap. So I'm still using that smooth peaks brush and kind of leaving behind some cool streaks that I kind of like. This kind of stuff is pretty neat. You know, I always say that, you know, a good way to get better at ZBrush is to try and spend some time just making junk in ZBrush without paying too much attention to what you're trying to make. It's a great way to discover all the weird little secrets that are hidden in the software. I always find playing with array mesh is a good way to kill some time playing with ZBrush. So it's getting somewhere. Let's save this. Yeah, isn't it amazing how a kid will be like, little kid will struggle with putting on their shoes, but the minute they get like an iPad or your phone in their hands, they're suddenly doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And you can kind of just see the little gears working in their head. Speaking of gears, figuring out what your password is and all kinds of dangerous things. Okay, so what's going on here? I thought I had backface mask on this. I thought I did. That's interesting. Yeah, I have two versions of that brush. Interesting. That's a little bit more. And a little smoothing. And then we'll just do the last one here real quick. You know, this is not the end of the detail I'm going to do in the abdomen, but this is sort of just getting that first past. There'll be more larger detail that I want to put on later on. But it's just to get things going and looking a little bit more organic. I think the favorite model that I've done so far is the amblypygid, the tailless whip scorpion. That's one of my favorites. If you look on my YouTube channel, I have videos on some time lapse on how I did the tailless whip scorpion model, and it came out really nice. It's one of my favorites. It's also one of my favorite organisms. I had to sculpt I got a request or a commission to do a wedding band based on the amblypygid or tailless whip scorpion. Came out really well. Pretty interesting and difficult challenge, but it finally got cast in like white gold, and it's really neat. And obviously, for someone who's a huge fan, Peggy Wolven, of entomology and arachnids, and she actually has amblypygids as pets. This is a cool project. I did a jumping spider ring that I was very proud of, and some designer recently ripped off my design. Not much I can do about it because I don't have time to hire a lawyer and go after them, and I think they have a lot more money than me. But people were like, oh my god, AI is ripping off our art. You forget, hey, human beings would do it too. And if they have more money than you, good luck going after them. But what are you going to do? I think the problem is his design is he made it just different enough so couldn't really have a case for the fact that he ripped off my design, but it's kind of depressing. Oh well, what are you going to do? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on it, I'm going to mask this guy and go in here and go to the surface noise and turn on that noise again and do apply to mesh. Alright, so you can see that surface noise is applied. You do it one more time. You can also do repeat stroke, it does the same thing. Then I'll go in here and do my clay polish. And then invert the mask and hide the mask. And go over here with the inflate brush and then just do this kind of thing. You get some of these cool cracks and that kind of stuff down here. I might even subdivide this one more time because it's only a 2 million. Maybe in the next pass when I do some more heavy detailing on here, I'll divide it again. So give me like what, 8 or 9 million to play with. That's not too bad. You could just sort of apply the noise and do an overall inflate or negative inflate, but I think using a brush to do it gives you more variation because of the variation of pressure as you go over it, so that looks a little bit more organic than just doing like a overall and negative inflate using a deformer or whatever. So that's kind of why I do it this way. Plus it's more fun. Oh, I think it looks really cool right there. Okay. I'm going to clear the mask and just do a little bit. Knock it back just a little bit so it's not too extreme. This is like, say, like a baseline level of detail. You can add more on top of this. That looks pretty cool. Let's see. The one I have to find is, if you take a look at the side view here, how the parts of the abdomen meet up. I know I have the side view in here somewhere. There we go. Yeah, it's hard to see because it's kind of hidden by the elytra and the legs. Let's see, where's the other image? Yeah, it's almost like they meet here at the crease. As far as I can tell, I guess it's a bit more like a cockroach than I'm used to doing ants and honeybees. Oh, there's the foot. Yeah, so there we go. We're looking at, okay, so I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon because I'm just doing a short one tonight. I got to take a break for a few weeks from doing the live stream and focus on some other things that are going on. So hopefully I will be back here within a few weeks. But if you follow me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, I usually make announcements when I'm going to do a live stream. And you can also check out the ZBrush live stream calendar for when I'm going to be playing next, when I'm going to be live streaming next. I probably work on this a little bit more. And then I want to do some original creature designs inspired by insects, so I'll be doing that in the future. So check it out. In the meantime, I hope you all have a enjoyable month. Do some ZBrushing, do some bugs, have some fun with it. And do some stuff on the head here, but it's looking pretty good. The back is a lot of detailing, slow detailing, so that's why I'm doing a little bit at a time, so it's not too tedious to watch. Same with the legs. This one's got a lot of detail on it, but I think it's going to be a really cool model when it's done. And then the crazy antenna and stuff. Yeah, my 6-year-old watches a lot of Illumination, Minions and stuff like that, which is obviously all cartoons. I don't think she's picked up on sort of realistic CG stuff in movies because I don't want to show her too many scary movies and that kind of thing. But she definitely does have an appreciation. And I've been watching the Illumination movies, and I got to tell you, I love them. I like them better than Pixar, let me put it that way. Because with the Illumination movies, the sense of humor is so good, and I don't feel like they're trying to emotionally manipulate me. If there's a moment of pathos in the movie, it feels more organic. Whereas I feel like with Pixar, that they study human emotions so much that it's like you're being programmed when to cry and when to laugh and all that kind of stuff. It kind of freaks me out. But there's also a quality to the animation in Illumination that I think really they excel at. It's my favorite so far. So, and then their models and rendering is just absolutely beautiful. They just do fantastic stuff. So she watches a lot of that. So we haven't really exposed her to a lot of like realistic CG, but she knows ZBrush. She knows what ZBrush does, and she's been playing with it and creating some things and doing some sculpting. So that's kind of fun to watch. Cool. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good week. I'll let you know when I'm live streaming again. Thanks again for your support watching me. I really appreciate it. It's always nice contacting